Tape A, Side 2, Adventures in Life of Hammer Kelley. So, 1945, out here at McMahan, Texas, we built a red shed down here, between the house, and down here at Daniel Creek. We built it in June of 45, and World War II was still going on. I know that for a fact, because there's a cement slab in there, this marked with a nail, I suppose, June 1945. Me and my dad built that thing. But when World War II come along, December 7th, 1941, me and a couple of my school buddies, we were about, 40, well, we were about 11 or 12 years old. We were playing down there at Tenny Creek on the bridge about 9 o'clock in the morning. Old Bart Magee come by there blowing his horn, hollering, said the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor. We never had heard of the Japs, and we never had heard of Pearl Harbor. We didn't know what the devil that fellow was talking about. But anyway, that was another story of back then. But speaking of Bart Magee, he and Jim Brown had the longest and narrowest pastures of anybody in this area out here, because they used their pasture was the roads. These are dirt and gravel roads. And also, speaking of Bart Magee, he just lived over the hill here. He was a carpenter feller and so forth, and he was a real big farm guy, and everybody got a new piece of equipment in this area, new farm equipment, well, he'd be the first one to get it. So in 1945, in the summertime, he had him one of these newfangled hay balers. First hay balers there was in this county, I guess. They did it with a machine. But the men folks still had to shock this stuff and break it up and shock it and all that stuff and throw this hay with pitchforks over in this chute-like thing. And me, I had me a job of punching the wires, sitting down on my butt side, and I made $3 a day from, I guess, around 7 o'clock in the morning till 6 or 7 at night. But come Saturday night, I had $18. And that never did see no likes of money like that in my life. $18. Didn't pay no taxes. Didn't pay nothing out. I had $18 cash. But sure did get dirty at that job, but I had a simple job, just punching those wires through there. That beat the devil out of throwing that pitchfork in that hay and throwing it in that chute to get them little bales out there. And I believe Bart Magee, I believe the people that we baled hay for, they paid him 25 cents per bale. And I don't know what people had to pay for a bale of hay in those days. It might have been not too much. But anyway, that was the days of yesteryear. So next thing here, I'm going to start talking about when I started riding the school bus and started going in high school, which I went to Lockhart High from the September, I guess, of 1943 until May of 1946. So I went my sophomore, junior, and senior year at the Lockhart High School. They called them the Lockhart Lions. I don't remember just how many people rode that bus from McMahan to Lockhart. We picked up a few along the way between here and Dry Creek. But we had a guy by the name of Riley King lived out here in the hills. Another feller out here was just poor as Job's turkey. So he drove the bus. And big old yellow bus. And I guess all my classmates was sophomores. The seven of us that started the first grade was on this bus. But I had me this one special girlfriend. Her name was Lorraine DeVinny. So Lorraine DeVinny and I, we would get in the back of the bus. And we would cover up with books and whatever we could find or something and shield ourselves, and we'd make it a little kissing and so forth. That was the good old days when I was just about maybe 14, 15 years old. But I still I already knew the difference in boys and girls. Anyway, the good old days. But anyway, we get up there to Lockhart, and old Raleigh King, well, he worked in the daytime after driving this bus up there. We had to be at school, I guess, around 8 o'clock in the morning. And he worked at Christ's Meat Market, and then he, picked us up from school about 3 or 4, I guess maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and drove the bus back out here and let us off again. But this Lockhart High School, I don't remember what street it's on, but that was a way, way back yonder. I took my lunch to school, I guess, every day. And anyway, we didn't have a lot of apples and oranges and bananas and candy or nothing like that. No. We had tea cakes and sandwiches and maybe cheese and crackers or something like that. Not too swift to stuff, but we made it. But they had up there in Lockhart, they had a Lamb's hamburger joint. It was just across the street from the high school, and I understand you could get a hamburger those days for 10 or 15 cents, but Hambone didn't have too many 10 or 15 cents. So I don't imagine I ate maybe 4 or 5 hamburgers up there in those 3 years. But they come noontime up there, chow time at noon, I'd go back to the yellow bus under the big old oak tree, which the oak tree is still standing there today on the south side of the Adams Gymnasium, and eat my sandwich in the bus. I was a shy boy. I didn't know much about nothing in this world. Anyway, so that sophomore and junior and senior year up there, well, I still had all these chores to do out here at McMahan. When I got back home in the afternoons, I guess around 4:30. And once again, we did not have newspapers. We did not have but one little radio, and you could hardly hear it because the battery was no good or the thing wasn't working half the time. You may have to heat it or beat on it or something, but we didn't have much, nothing like that. And we still had coal oil lanterns, no electricity, no way to get any circulation in here. So I didn't study too much. I never did study too much, never did like to read or do nothing like that. But I still had all those good chores to do when I got home. Slopping the hogs, milking the cows, feeding the chickens, working out in the field sometime until 6 o'clock at night. Out here in my day, we had breakfast about 7 o'clock in the morning and 12 at noon. And at 6 at night, and if you wasn't there, you didn't get nothing to eat. That's tough. There was no snacks during the in-between times unless maybe there was a tea cake or something like that. So I don't remember a lot about going to high school in Lockhart. I guess it wasn't very exciting, wasn't very thrilling and so forth. But I was a good enough basketball player that I got to be on the first team there, and around 45 or 46, somewhere in there. And I got to go on a trip or so somewhere to play a little basketball, but my career in athletics didn't last very long. Because old Tony out here, that quarter horse, fell on my right foot one day and broke the hell out of it. So that was the end of my my career of being an athlete or anything like that. So those 3 years up there, somewhere I guess around 1945, yeah, I guess it was, well, I met up with this gal named Elizabeth Lale Cardwell. And it seemed like all our classes were on the second floor, but we had and we had a big hallway there. We had a locker there. I don't know what the hell we was going to lock up. We didn't have too many valuables or anything. We didn't lock nothing up, just close the doors. Books or something like that, I guess. But we had a big old study hall there, like, and I never did study. I guess I just went in there and just do nothing. So I met this Lale Cardwell in this somewhere up on that second floor. But anyway, in 1946, well, I got out of high school in Lockhart in May, and I guess I got to go out with Lale maybe a few times here and there, but wasn't too much. But I didn't have a driver's license. I lived in McMahan, and she lived in Lockhart. And I didn't have no way to get nowhere, and I wasn't even driving by then anyway. So I don't remember a lot about that. So after May of 1946, well, I figured out years afterwards I never could have been a lawyer like my son is, for a simple 3 reasons. I was too dumb. My folks were too poor. And the third and main reason, even if I had been able to do those other 2 things, I never would have been able to pass the damn bar. So there was never any thoughts or talk about anything. My dad, he didn't ever tell me nothing much to do except go to work and do this and do that. He didn't know much to tell me anything, and I learned most of my stuff from my mother. And, they were just farm folks. But anyway, in 1946, my brother-in-law Vernon Woods, he worked at McMahan for James Chamberlain's grocery store. And I didn't want, I did not want to be a farmer. So got a job working at Christ Meat Market there in Lockhart. And they paid me $20 a week. So I moved my few duds up there and went to a Tate Hotel, which was on San Antonio Street, where the City Hall is today. And this Tate Hotel was run by Eddie Tate. Her name before marriage, she was a Kelley, some kin to me some way. But anyway, at this boarding and rooming house, I lived on the second floor. And I hear it was a part-time cat house or something, but I wasn't but about 16 or 17, so I wouldn't know about that. But anyway, the groceries, the room and board cost me $10 a week. And this $20 I made at working at Crisis, so I had $10 a week left. There was no taxes, there wasn't no nothing else to pay. So Saturday night, well, had that $10, and I guess Lel and I went out to, maybe we'd go down to a movie or something like that. But a lot of times when I lived up there in the Tate Hotel, I'd walk up San Antonio Street going to her house and stay up there for a while, and we'd be up there with her and Mary Cecil and Mr. and Mrs. Cardwell. Cecil and Mary, that is. Then after a while I'd be up there or whatever, I'd walk back to the Tate Hotel. Well, in 1946, I believe Lel was just a freshman. She didn't get out of high school till 1949. So she was about 3 years younger than me. But anywhere working down there at Crisis, I had this honor, the great opportunity of a lifetime, that to work at Crisis Meat Market, and I stacked the groceries in the mornings. I'd go down in the basement and I'd pick up all this canned food, walk up the stairs there, back on the first floor, and take it up to the front. And I would stack these cans of vegetables and everything in these different shelves and fix the bread and do all that stuff. I was not a butcher or nothing like that. And it come noontime, well, I'd get behind the barbecue pit. And I'd help them sell the barbecue and sausage and the mare guts and such stuff as that. I didn't sell the soda water. But anyway, that's the way it was. And that was from 7 in the morning until 6 in the afternoon. And we could eat all the barbecue and sausage we wanted, but it's just like eating Mexican food. You get tired of it pretty cotton picking quick. At that time, I do not remember how much the barbecue sold a pound for. Wasn't dollars, there's so many cents per pound, I know for sure. But sausage were 10 cents a piece, 3 for a quarter. And if a person didn't have but 5 cents, we would cut one half in two. And the soda water, the red soda water, the orange soda water, Coca-Cola, whatever it was, I never did. They didn't give me those free, so I'd have to drink out the fountain. They were just no cold water, no, just out of the tap. But those soda waters, they were just a nickel too. So we had a place upstairs where people could eat. But in the main part of downstairs, we just had the first way you could go in there was from the west side, and the hallway is where the niggers ate. And we had tables up and down that hallway there, and then right across from the barbecue pit on the east side there, well, that's where the white folks and the Mexicans ate, or they could go upstairs. Good old days of Hambone K all the way. There were 2 brothers that owned Kreitz's Meat Market, Alvin Kreitz and Teddy Kreitz, and they had a brother-in-law that was a part owner. His name was Hugo Proby. Hugo Proby was my buddy. He liked me for some reason. The fella liked me, I don't know why, but he offered to send me with his money to go to Texas A&M University and College Station. And I didn't do it. I wasn't too bright. Not too bright still, but I didn't do that. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't do it. Anyway, another story of my life. So, a lot of times on the weekend, Lel and I, we would go to the movie, and it could cost, I believe it was a quarter a piece. And at first, when I lived in Lockhart, the first few months there, well, I don't know how we got to this movie unless we just walked up and down San Antonio Street till we got to the movie down there at the Baker Theater. Well, we could go in there and do that, and I didn't like movies much anyway. I didn't like much nothing. I wasn't too interested in a lot of things. But anyway, across the street was Elliott's Confectionery, they called it, ice cream parlor. You could get a nickel worth of ice cream for a nickel. How about that? Or you could get you a banana split. Never had a quarter. No, too much money. And that slot machines or little playback machines in there, shuffle thing, whatever. And do that stuff. But after I'd been there a few months, working at Crisis, that is, somehow I got $20 extra. So I bought myself a 1929 Model A Ford. Now, I don't remember who I bought it from, but I know it cost me $20. And it didn't have a top. It only had one door. The left door was missing. But it had a rumble seat where you could put things back there, and girls and so forth. And the girls loved rumble seats. Oh, they loved rumble seats. Oh, yeah, they did. Those young girls, oh, yeah. So anyway, this battery was dead on this car when I got it. So I'd have to park it on an incline, a sort of a downgrade, you know, side of a hill or something where I could get it going. So I'd put 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot on the running board and have it in neutral with a switch on and get her going and throw it in gear and away we'd go. Didn't drive that 29 too much during the week, hardly at all, because didn't have enough money to have the car and to buy gasoline, both. It was poor folks' day. Poor folks' days, that is. But anyway, did not have to have insurance, didn't know what that was. Didn't have a driver's license, didn't know nothing about nothing like that anyway. But every once in a while on a Saturday night, I guess, we got along pretty good, but anyway, and Mary Carter, Miss Carter, we all got along fine. But anyway, just little old young kids, you know. So on the weekend, we would go sometime to the park, which is a couple of miles out of Lockhart West there on Highway 20, going towards Fences. So I always figured if we could get up that windy hill going to that park up there where they had a clubhouse and they sold hamburgers and soda water and beer to older folks, and they had down there picnic areas and a swimming pool, and they had park areas with benches, and you could go out there and you could have a nice picnic and a golf course and all that stuff. So I always figured I could make it up that hill, and they had dances up there. And if I make it up that hill, it'd be all right, and if I could make it downhill, that'd be just fine, unless the cotton picking brakes went out. So I guess I lucked out all the way around. We didn't go out there too much, couldn't afford it, and I wasn't a good dancer anyway. I couldn't keep in step with a rattlesnake. But anyway, back there in Lockhart, well, I hung around up there, I guess May or June of 1946 until the real last part of 1947. Yeah, the latter part of 47, I decided I didn't want to work at Christ's Meat Market anymore. I wasn't going to make my fortune there. I wasn't going to make nothing there. That wasn't my line of work. Didn't fit my hands. Didn't fit my nothing. So, I don't know who I sold this 29 Model 8 to or how or whatever happened to it, but I wish I still had it. But that's a lot of years ago, so I don't know what happened to that thing. No, you're talking about that right now. But anyway, so I come on back out here at McMahan, no job again, and still didn't want to be no cotton picking farmer. Didn't know what I was going to do. So I stayed out here until March of 1948. Vern Woods was still working for James Chamberlain at McMahan grocery store. And that McMahan grocery store, they sold ice, and they went to Lockhart and picked it up and brought it back. And they had cheese and crackers in there, and they sold khaki pants, and they sold nickel soda water and ice cream and all kind of canned food and everything like that. And rainy days, the old farmers, they'd go down there and sit down on the front porch, and they'd talk about how many problems they had, all that bad stuff, and how much it rained, how much it didn't rain, how the crops going and everything else. You know, it's pretty lively little town back in those days. But anyway, so here in March, there was this seismograph crew that was based in Luling, Texas. And I had never heard of a seismograph crew, oil exploration, doodlebugging, geophysical, hunting for oil and gas, minerals or whatever. I had never heard of such thing, ever. There's a hell of a lot of things I never had heard of then, and there's a hell of a lot of things this day I haven't heard of yet. Anyway, I guess just people, they stopped at McMahan and got something to eat or some groceries or something, and somehow I got me a job, worked for General Geophysical Company. a seismic company. Their office was downtown in Houston, Texas, but they had a laboratory, they called it, on Post Oak Road. Remember, this is 1948 in the springtime. So I got me this job, and they paid me $37.50 per week to work 50 hours per week. And so that was a big jump. Mighty lot more money than $20 a week, because I never got a raise at Christ's Meat Market in that a year and a half or so or more that I worked for those folks. But this $37.50 a week, I found out pretty quick that they paid on a sliding scale, so the more hours you worked, well, you greasy your britches got, you went sliding downhill pretty fast. One time I figured out I was making 11 cents an hour. Big time Doodlebug Kelley. So this seismograph business, I will explain it here and now, the best of my ability after all these years. We had an office crew, like I just said, they were home office, the little office was in Luling, Texas, had a party chief and 2 computer operators, means real people, not machine computers, that they worked in the office and they interpreted the records, the seismic data that we gathered from the field. The field crew we had at those days, sometimes you had to have a party permit man, that he would have to go and permit the land to get permission from the farmers and ranchers or whatever to do seismograph work on their property. We didn't have that in all places, especially not out in the Gulf of Mexico and the bay jobs. But anyway, that's getting ahead of my story. Other than the permit man, the next guy out there, on some crews we had what we call party managers, and a party manager is the guy that was in charge of all the field crew. He was the head boss. But in McMahan out here in those days, in that 1948, we didn't have one of those, but on some crews we did have party managers. But out here after that we had an observer. The observer is the guy that was the operator, the instrument engineer. He took the seismic records. And this feller had 2 helpers, a junior observer, we called him a J.O., and they had a jug hustler. And we had 2 drills out there in these sand hills, and we had 2 water trucks, so we had to have 2 drillers and 2 water jacks. And we had to have a survey crew, which was a surveyor and a rodman. And we had to have a shooter and a shooter's helper. And this party chief, the guy in the office, he was in charge of the office crew, and also he was in charge of the field crew. So apparently they wanted this hembone here not to stay here while they were working out here in the hills, but to move down to Luling, Texas. That wasn't too big of a chore. I didn't have much to move except me and a few khaki clothes and khaki shirts and a few other little duds that I had, so that wasn't no big deal. So somehow I got to Luling, Texas in March of 1948, and I started my illustrious career of being in the seismograph business for around 38 years, except for 2 years that I was in the U.S. Army. This tape A, side 2, first 75 years of GRK's story is about to expire. This tape, that is, will be continued on tape B, very shortly.